Hello everyone, Kino Jack is in touch and today I will tell you about the first and second series of the 11th season of the Walking Dead series. For a better understanding of what is happening, I advise you to look at the retelling of the previous series using the links in the description. Daryl, Maggie and a group of Alexandrians are mobilizing at a military base. They open a trapdoor in the ground. Maggie leads a small group to the helicopter hangar. They enter a room filled with walkers lying motionless on the ground. They quietly bypass the walkers. Magna breaks the lock on the door, and the group walks down the corridor. They find a crate full of mrbear and stuff it into their backpacks. Maggie, Carol and Rosita load backpacks onto a pulley system. Daryl and Alden lift their backpacks up. The pulley snaps. Daryl grabs the backpack before it can fall on the walkers, but he cuts his hand, and drops of his blood fall on the walker. The walker stirs, waking up all the other walkers in the room. Maggie's group starts killing walkers. Daryl and Alden lift the team to safety one by one. The group returns to Alexandria. Daryl hugs Judith and RJ. Herschel runs up to Maggie with Cole, Duncan and Agatha, members of Maggie's old community who have reached Alexandria in search of her. Nearby, Gabriel breaks up a fight between people arguing about food rations. Gabriel holds an emergency meeting and announces that there is only enough food in Alexandria for a week. Maggie offers to replenish supplies by returning her old community, Meridian, which was captured by a group that destroyed most of its inhabitants. Daryl and Gabriel volunteer to join her. Maggie leads the group through Washington, D.C., en route to Meridian. Caught in a thunderstorm, they decide to take shelter at a subway station. Maggie's team goes underground. Daryl suggests they travel through the subway tunnels. Negan strongly disagrees, but Maggie orders him to tell them the fastest subway route to Meridian, since he is the most familiar with the District of Columbia. They jump onto the tracks. The group is walking through the subway tunnel. They can hear the pipes groaning from the storm wind. Negan points to a watermark on the wall, indicating that the tunnels are regularly flooded. He suggests they turn back, but Daryl rejects his idea. Eugene and Ezekiel, Yumika and the princess end up in a camp guarded by paramilitary units. In the interrogation room, a man and a woman introduce themselves to Eugene as Commonwealth auditors. They interrogate him for several hours, as well as Ezekiel, Yumik and the princess. And Ezekiel interrupts the interrogation and correctly guesses that the paratrooper who was quietly watching him is actually in charge. He coughs uncontrollably. The paratrooper, Mercer, passes him a glass of water. A group of Ezekiel eats together in the detention center. The princess, Yumika, and Il agree that they should try to escape, but Eugene claims that the Commonwealth can help Alexandria. The princess asks some of the prisoners how long they have been there. One of the prisoners replies that he can't remember because of the processing, and then they fall silent. The paratroopers take the prisoner away to send him for recycling. Eugene changes his mind and agrees that they need to escape. In the subway tunnel, Maggie's group stumbles upon a pile of corpses, each wrapped in plastic. Daryl removes the plastic from one body and kills the walker when he snaps. They notice that the walker didn't make any sounds because his throat was cut. Maggie orders the group to kill all the walkers so they can continue on their way. Maggie's group kills every walker with a knife. A huge walker silently attacks Gagey. Negan kills the walker and refuses to go any further, calling Maggie's plan a death march. Gate Shira agrees with Negan, but Maggie insists that Negan should stay with them to guide them through DC. Negan guesses that Maggie took him with her to send him to his death. Maggie admits that she constantly thinks about killing Negan, and is not sure how long her self-restraint will last. Eugene's group discusses an escape plan. The princess watches their guards with interest and talks about the details that no one noticed. She says that two of them regularly disappear for half an hour to have sex. They develop an escape plan in this time interval. Yumika and Eugene put on their military uniforms and escort the princess and Ezekiel down the corridor. The paratrooper asks where they are going. Yumika says they are taking prisoners to be processed. The serviceman releases them. They leave the building and walk past a wall covered with photographs of prisoners. The princess recognizes Yumika in one of the photos. Yumika sees that the photo is accompanied by a note from her brother asking if anyone has seen Yumika. She realizes that her brother is in the complex, and decides that she must stay and find him. Maggie's group realizes that Gage and Roy have secretly escaped and taken all their supplies. A herd of walkers appears further down the tunnel. They start killing walkers and are looking for an escape route. Daryl runs after the dog while the rest of the group climbs the stairs to safety. Maggie climbs the stairs last. The walker grabs her leg. She calls the book for help, but he throws her, she loses her grip and falls. Maggie fights off the approaching horde with a pistol until she runs out of ammo, and then the walkers pounce on her. Meanwhile, the rest of the group makes their way inside the car, but discovers that the doors to the next car are closed. When Negan goes downstairs, the group asks about Maggie's whereabouts, to which Negan replies that she was right behind him. Although Gabriel is clearly upset, he decides to continue the mission. Following the dog, Daryl punches a hole in the wall and climbs inside. Inside the tunnel, he finds the remains of the camp. In the Yumika Fellowship, Eugene and the princess discuss the disappearance of Ezeka. Later, the auditors interview Yumik. She explains that she was a criminal defense lawyer before the apocalypse and has reason to believe that her brother lives in the Commonwealth and is looking for her. She requests accelerated processing for her group. Returning to the subway, there is a loud noise, followed by a scream. In pursuit of him, the dog jumps into the pipe, forcing Daryl to climb behind him. While Daryl crawls down the tube, the rest of the group finally manages to open the door and walk forward to the next car. Suddenly they hear a knock under them, which specifically signals SOS in Morse code. When they open the trap door, Maggie climbs into the subway car alive. Enraged, she beats Negan for his betrayal and explains to the others what happened. Negan readily admits his guilt. Alden accuses Negan of trying to kill Maggie, but he corrects him, explaining that he simply decided not to save her when she was in trouble. Agatha offers to kill Negan, assuring Maggie that they can get through the city without him. Before anything can happen, they hear someone screaming for help from the back of the train car. They find Gagey trapped in the last car, unable to open the door. He explains that he and Roy got lost in the tunnels. However, Gage did not close the door behind him when he entered the car, which allowed walkers to break in. Negan asks for help to open the door and let Gage in, but Maggie objects, as this will allow walkers to get into them. Despite this, Alden tries to help Negan open the door, but Duncan stops him. Gage begs Maggie to save him, apologizing for his mistake and promising to make amends, but she is adamant they don't have ammo to destroy the walkers. Embittered, Gage calls her a liar, and then stabs himself in the chest to save himself the pain of being torn apart by walkers. As Frost and Duncan try to open the front car door, Maggie stares at the crawling car long enough to see Gage get up and join the horde. Alden counters that Gage didn't deserve to die in the most horrible way imaginable. Meanwhile, Daryl finds a trail of blood inside the tunnel and hears a dog barking. Soon he comes across a wounded Roy. He meekly asks for help, and then faints. Having dispersed the walkers chasing Roy, Daryl comes to his aid. He asks Roy if he went outside, and Roy confirms, admitting that it was a bad idea. He also says he lost the Gagey, as well as the bag of ammunition he was carrying. Roy hands Daryl his remaining weapon. Roy's only request: for Daryl to tell his kids that he didn't die a coward. Frost and Duncan finally manage to open the door, but the next one turns out to be blocked. The pressure of walkers on the opposite door, including the zombified Gage, eventually leads to the door breaking. Gabriel drives off the walkers with a shotgun, and Maggie gives Negan a gun to help kill the herd. Meanwhile, Daryl sneaks up on the walkers in the front car and begins to deal with them with Roy's gun. When the ammunition runs out, the survivors are forced to resort to melee weapons. Fortunately, Daryl gets to the locked door in time and is able to open it. When everyone is inside, he puts a grenade in the mouth of a walker and pushes him into the horde, after which he slams the door and goes into hiding. As a result of the explosion, the remaining walkers die. Eugene is taken to a room for further questioning by General Mercer. Eugene scares Mercer, who demands to know where his settlement is and why he ended up at the train station. Eugene tells the truth, breaking down in the process. With a bag on his head, Eugene is brought to the train car, where he rejoices at being reunited with his friends. He also asks Ezekiel where the soldiers took him, but the latter replies that he was taken to the infirmary, where he was given cough syrup. Their conversation is interrupted when Mercer enters the room. He officially accepts them into the Commonwealth. Mercer then knocks on the door twice. When it opens, a woman who introduces herself as Stephanie enters. After taking Roy, Maggie's group finally gets to the surface. Negan obediently returns Maggie her gun. Agatha asks if they are going to hit the road, but Maggie says that first they will go to Warba Hills, where there is a hidden warehouse of supplies arranged by Georgie. She asks Negan if he knows where it is, and he confirms, "I offer to lead them." Arriving at the scene, the group is alarmed by the sight of bodies scattered along the road they are driving. Suddenly, arrows and throwing knives fly into the group, killing Roy and Cole heavily earlier. As the group runs for cover, they see a group of Reapers approaching them.